Kingdom News Now today, we have a very special episode for you today. I'm so excited to be here. Jack won't be with us today, so Rusty and I can get in all the trouble that we want to all by ourselves.
Exactly.
Actually, we have a guest speaker today that is we're going to do a little interview for her, and you are going to just enjoy this so much if you will just sit back and have a time to listen to what God has done in this life. You know, we started out Kingdom News Now with more testimonies than anything because we wanted to show and represent how everyday people like you and me, are experiencing great things in Christ. That He's dramatically changed and shifted our lives and opened doors where nobody else could open a door, where we thought we were stuck in a place, and God just opened doors. And this very program is one of those mighty miracle examples that God has put in our life, that we are playing all over the world with Kingdom News Now to give glory to the kingdom and to give glory to the Father and the Son. So we want to introduce to you our special guest today. We have with us Kaylee Mailhot. I think I'm saying that correctly. She's from Ontario, Canada. She's a wife, she's a mother, she's a coach, she's an entrepreneur. She has a wonderful testimony of what Christ has done in her life and is doing today to share with you. She has a victorious testimony of having a son that was ill for a period of time and having a very difficult time figuring out what was going on with him. And God has given them total victory, and He is doing wonderful today. We're going to share that with you, how God has totally fixed his little body and touched him. She not only has a great testimony, but she also has a unique lifestyle of faith, family, and simplicity. How many of us need faith, family, and to simplify our very complicated lives? I thank God for the word that she's going to share today. It's going to be freedom to some of you. You're going to find help and hope in areas that you've been looking for. I believe that with all my heart. Her website and the things that she has posted say that she thrives on helping families live healthy, sufficient lives. She has something that I have coveted for all of my life. She has a green thumb, and she's able to figure out some things that I've been looking into and trying my hand at. So I'm very interested in some of the things that she is going to share today. She has a YouTube channel. She can be found at Self-Sufficient Mompreneur, and you'll see that on the screen. Go and join her YouTube. Subscribe to her YouTube today and make sure that you make a connection, because she's going to share some things that you're going to want to have access to later. So Kaylee, we want to welcome you to the program today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Absolutely.
I forgot to introduce
That's all
Rusty.
right.
We all know who Rusty is.
Yeah.
He's our local mayor and our great help with the program. Rusty actually brought Kaylee to our attention and recommended that we get her on because she had such a great testimony. He's known her for
Probably over a month, I think it is.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we actually met through a Christian Creators page on
Yes.
Facebook, and then she messaged me on some stuff that helped my wife and I and everything. So one thing with talking to her is a blessing, because just to hearing her story, I can real quick. Sorry, I usually I follow her on stories and stuff like this to see how things are going. And watching her story and everything each day, you can see the what she's doing. What I mean, the glory of God through her family, because her kid, it's amazing. So I'm just going, Kaylee, you got it.
Tell us how you met Christ and how things have come about in your life.
Absolutely. I would love to. So, my story started, I mean, I've always been a follower of Christ. My dad brought me to church when I was young, but I never really had a relationship with him. And I'm going to get into how that happened as I share my testimony. So, As you guys know, I'm a mother. I've got two little ones. So my son, Noah, he is going to be 7 this year. And my daughter, Lauren, she just turned 5. And back before I was a mom, I always had a heart for helping others. I always woke up in the morning wanting to put a smile on others' faces and just really being a light in people's lives. And I used to actually work in a group home, and I absolutely loved that. I got such a fulfillment out of doing things for others that they couldn't do for themselves. I worked with individuals who had disabilities and absolutely loved it. And back in 2019, when I became a mom, I went off on maternity leave. And while I was on maternity leave, um, that's when I really first felt God's hand in my life for his plan and not mine. And I never thought that I wouldn't be somebody who worked outside of the home. I always thought I would be an employee. But like I said, when I had my son and I became a mom, for the very first time, I felt that pull of a different plan in my life heading a different way. And that's exactly what happened. So I had Noah in 2019, and something that's not talked about a lot, especially with mothers, is postpartum depression. I had postpartum depression really, really bad, to the point that I was almost suicidal, and it was awful. I never had experienced thoughts like that before. There's this thing, I guess, your body completely shifts all of the things when you become a mom and go through all the different changes in your body. And I experienced all of it. It was a really dark time in my life. But now looking back, just like we know, right? Looking back, it's easy to connect the dots. Looking forward, not so much. So at that point in my life, I was a new mom. I was wrestling with this thought in my mind of wanting to be home and not giving my son to somebody else to raise while I was working, because even when we would look at the finances and on paper what it would be to have somebody take care of my boy while I was working, it was almost like trading a paycheck just so I could go to work. You know what I mean? So I was called to be home, but I didn't know how I could be home. And I was also wrestling with postpartum depression really bad. So this is when I first felt God's hand in my life moving in a way of like almost surrender. And Kaylee, you don't have to figure it out. I'm just going to take the first step with you right now. And it led me to actually hiring a mindset coach. I met this lady online. She had just started her online coaching business, and I went through some of her material. Long story short, I started coaching. So I completely changed my thoughts, right? Our thoughts are everything. And if we don't take captive our thoughts, they can actually control our lives. We're told to take captive our thoughts and make them obedient to Christ. And that's exactly what I learned through becoming a mindset coach. I started helping a lot of people with their minds, loving themselves, knowing their self-worth, connecting their heart and their mind to that calling, and knowing that God doesn't put it on your heart for no reason, that you should follow it even when you don't know the how. And that's where my first step happened. So from there, I was, dead set that I wasn't going back to work. And I started a little coaching business of my own. I partnered with a lady. We were doing this coaching business. And right when Noah was 9 months old, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And funny enough, I literally looked to the skies and I was like, God's plan. It's so funny because when she was due was the same week I was supposed to go back to work. And I looked at my husband and he's like, "You're kidding." He's like, "You're pregnant?" And I said, "Well, we've got a plan on our hands that I guess we are just going to follow." So, through just, taking that first step and God lights up the next step, it's all but by obedience and just doing what we're supposed to do and be called to. Um,
That was
like
like
I said, I
God
started
saying,
a
"Here's
coach.
your sign.
Yes,
Here's your sign."
absolutely.
That really got your attention because of the time frame of that. God has done that so many times. He will cause something to be confirmed over and over, and you don't have to doubt whether or not it was him because it's supernatural, and you realize it right
Absolutely.
away.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because, if I don't want to say if my daughter, like if we didn't conceive my daughter, I would have went back to work. I feel like I maybe did, but that was like you just said, the definite like, this is God's plan. You're like you were kind of pedaling around with the idea, but like now this is happening,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So, um, yeah. So I had my own coaching business. It was super super exciting. Like I said, I helped a lot of people, but even through my coaching business, it was fulfilling, but I still felt like because I knew what it felt like to have something on your heart and God actually putting that plan into motion, I still felt like I was being called to do more. I just didn't know what it was. And sometimes too, because through my coaching business, some things happened and some light was brought to the darkness about the lady that I was partnered with. And it's almost like, when sometimes God puts you in a place where it's like, it's not the place that you want to be, but He puts you there because you need to learn something,
Yes, yes.
right? Like you need to learn that lesson. And I always talk about the analogy, I think that's what it's called, of like how a seed's buried, right? A seed is
Correct.
buried in the dirt
Yes.
and it's completely dark. And you might be thinking, why am I going through this? Why is this happening? And you're tested and you're tested and you're tested. And that's just God watering you. And till one day that shell, the seed, that shell just cracks and the growth comes from there, right?
Amen.
That's kind of where I was with my coaching business and being called to more, but not knowing what it was that I wanted to do or what I needed to do. So that kind of brought me to now I'm a mom of a 2.5-year old. My daughter's one. And like I said, my coaching business was great, but I was being called to more. At that same time, my son was super ill. Just like you were saying at the beginning of the program here, he was super ill, going through a lot of things. We were in and out of the clinic. He always had a respiratory infection. It was always ears, nose, throat, something along that lines. And we just couldn't figure it out. I'm like an entrepreneur, it takes work, right? It's totally different than being an employee and just showing up and doing your job. An entrepreneur, you wear all the hats, right? So here I am wearing all the hats. I've got a 1 year old, a 2.5 year old. I was very burnt out, trying to make this thing work. A lot of light was being brought to darkness. And my son was sick all the time. So we were in and out of clinics. And somebody had finally said to me, why don't you take him to a naturopath and see if, she can help because what you're doing isn't working. So that's what we did. We went to a naturopath and through questions about our environment and what it's like at home. What do we use for cleaners? What do we use on our laundry detergent? What do we use in our bathtubs? What do we use to wash our dishes? I'm not going to lie. At first, I looked at this lady and I said, what are you like? What does that have to do with anything?
Exactly.
Right? And I feel like that's the first time in my life I actually had an awakening to environmental health. That's something that we don't talk about a lot, if ever.
But we should be having that conversation for
Yes.
sure.
Right? And that's why I love having that conversation now because it changed our whole life and not in a light way. Like when I say it changed our whole life, God willing, it started the path to what it is that I'm doing now. And it opened my eyes to knowing I was willingly buying things and bringing them into our house that had my poor little boy in toxin overload. I didn't know what toxin overload was. I had no idea. But when the lady boiled it down for me, she said everything in our environment, right? And once again, just like a plant, it needs like if it's in a toxic environment, a plant's just going to shrivel up. The soil has to be good. It has to have proper lighting. It has to be watered. She says our environment, like this, our home, it needs to be, as best as we can make it. And once she explained all the things to me and how everything we bring into our home actually could do bad for us, it opened my eyes to actually looking at what could come from the path that I'm on. So when I was in this dark place, this is where my testimony and walking with the Lord, I truly believe looking back was the turning point for me. Like I said, I was in a really dark time. I was burnt out. I was going through all the things. My son was sick. Like I told you, I worked in a group home, so I'm very educated on like medications and administering them. And it got to the point where I had to administer like what do you call it again? I forget. Where you have medically restrained. I had to medically restrain my son to get these medications in him, and that's where I just dropped to my knees.
Wow.
And I'm like, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. This is happening every month. And I looked at my husband and I said, we need to go to church. We need to find a church. We need to go to church and we just need something different. And it was actually Easter of 2022 that we went to church. So it's coming up on our anniversary of getting back into church.
Awesome.
Right? It's pretty cool. I was writing some notes here to prepare for sharing my testimony, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool. It was Easter weekend that we first attended church because like I said, we used to go to church growing up, and we would most likely go all for the holidays, right? We still went here and there through the year, but we always went on the holidays, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving. And so I'm like, you know what? Let's go to church. So I looked around on Facebook. I actually asked my community Facebook group about churches and family friendly churches, and we found the one that we're at now. It's called Lake Point Family Church. I serve at that church now. But we started going to church, and through that, I didn't fully surrender my life to Christ yet, but I was building a relationship with Him. It was the first time in my life where I was going to church and I was actually learning who Jesus was and learning about His life and learning how He discipled His disciples and how He taught and what He did. And I felt like for the first time I actually had a relationship with Him where I could talk to Him and I could pray to Him in a way that He was right here beside me, right? And that changed a lot of things. It took a lot of stress and weight off of our shoulders. And when that happened, it honestly opened up connections that led me to, I don't want to say healing my son, but helping him And it's just super cool. So we did some lessons or classes in our church, and then on when was it? April 14th. So Easter weekend again, a year later, or maybe it was 2 years later. Anyways, it was April 14th, 2024. I got baptized, and that's when I just fully surrendered my life to Jesus. And I was like, you know what? You have done an incredible job of leading my life, and your plans always worked above mine. And I ain't gonna deny it anymore. You've got full reins. Whatever we're doing, I'm coming for it for the ride with you. Um, right? Amen to that. Just praise God. So that's kind of my story, and since then, my whole story has unfolded from there. And I want to say before I get into where it's led me to what I'm doing now is that if you're ever wrestling with the thought of like wanting to do something, or you're just being, led to something that you just don't know if you should do it, my biggest um, my biggest advice to you would be listen, because it's not put on your heart for no reason. It's there for a reason. And God always makes a way, always. Even if we don't think there's a way, there is always a way. And like I said, sometimes you'll go through the darkest days of your life before the light comes, and that's all part of the plan, right? Just trust the process. Trust the process. Um, so I'll go back to where my son was. So that's kind of where this transformation started. I surrendered my life to the Lord, and that opened up connections. And I had a gentleman online, because I never got into this, but I've always done something online right from when I was 18. I never put all my eggs in a basket. I always wanted options. So I have a big online presence. I know a lot of people online, and quite frankly, this is the part I forgot to say too. It kind of saved me in my postpartum depression days, because I was home with two kids and going from being in an environment with a whole bunch of adults, even the people I was working with and supporting were adults, to being home as a stay-at-home mom with two kids and no social interaction. I was going a little nuts some days. I'm not gonna lie. So the fact that I could talk to people online and get to know them and hear their stories, and just, you know, conversate back and forth about mom life and what's going on in your day to day, and meeting incredible people like you guys online. It's so cool what can happen online. But I came across a gentleman, and he was watching my story about Noah, because I was posting, pictures about him and saying we're in the clinic again. And he said, I really need to show you something. I really need to share something with you. And at the time, I said, I don't have time for you. I don't know who you are. No. And he finally got on a video call with me, and he shared with me a store. And I had never heard of it before. It's called the Wellness Store. He opened it up and showed me, and he said, I've been reading about the things that you were talking about with the environment, and how important it is to protect your environment and know what you're willingly buying and bringing into your home. He said, I want to share this with you. We switched. My mom had cancer, and we learned the same things you're learning right now. And he said, we came home and we were looking for options too. And he said, I found this. I'd love to share it with you. Long story short, everything that lady told me to get out of my house, all the toxins and chemicals, this store works in that way, where they don't ever make or manufacture anything with those toxins or chemicals. And once again, it was just like, God, like I told you, this is part of the plan. It led me down a rabbit hole of all the other things, but into the food and what we eat. And that's kind of what started my self sufficiency journey. So it's funny because you ever think about the old days and how like everybody that meets me tells me I'm an old
You're an
soul.
old soul. I'm not surprised.
Everybody that I meet tells me that. And you know, I love when I hear that because it's almost like a confirmation again of like you're right. That's how
It
I
really
feel.
is a compliment.
Yes, and I love it because I connect with a lot of older people. I don't connect with a lot. Well, I shouldn't say I don't, but I connect more with older people than people my age. Which sometimes I found that weird and strange, but it's not. I love it.
Connected to me.
There you go, Rusty. You're not old though.
I'm still part of the young crowd. I'll tell myself that forever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to stop here. I want to thank you for being here for this program today. We're going to make a break and then we're going to do another episode because I hear in your voice the voices of a million women.
Yes.
Who are looking at all of these things. We're learning every day about vaccines. We're learning about the environment. We're learning about the pesticides that we've been exposed to. We're learning about so many things, and you are treading ground in a brand new area of education for many of us. We're learning things we never knew before, and when I said it's a compliment to be called an old soul, it's because that generation really had some good truth that we've lost along the way.
Amen.
So I want to thank you for your voice.
Yes.
To a million women who are looking for exactly what you're looking for. And I want to encourage you, our viewers, to watch this episode, connect to Kaylee, and also follow her on Facebook, on YouTube, and all the other places that she has available for you. And we're going to come back in just a little bit, and we're going to talk about how can you get involved in homesteading and growing your own products and raising your own things. I think that particular topic alone is such an interest to a million people. We want to thank you for viewing today. We want to welcome Kaylee, and we want to thank her for taking time to be with us. It's been a great time to share together, and there just isn't enough time to hear all of her wonderful testimony in one show.
Amen.
So we'll be right back.
Yes.
Thank you for watching today.
Thank you.